A blogger, an indie novelist, that means independent novelist. She cranks out her own books and publishes them and so forth. She's the mother of 3. Maybe her biggest accomplishment, from what I know. And former teacher with a master's degree in educational psychology. Ms. Keffler has a warning for Northern Virginia families. Our children are being experimented on. And that's her message tonight. She has been written up in the Washington Post about her comments and positions regarding the Arlington Public Schools. She was recently on WMAL's Larry O'Connor show to discuss the op-ed she wrote about the Arlington Public Schools. Larry O'Connor said, quote, "This is not just about Arlington Public Schools. You know, this is about Fairfax and Montgomery and Prince George's and all around." So in this year of Fairfax County School Board elections, Ms. Keffler has important things to say about the leftist ideologues who are imposing upon our children in our public schools that we fund and support policies that have minimal parental involvement and consent. And she will walk you through that. At this time, I'd like a good round, warm applause from Maria Keffler.
I can walk up here, thanks. Thank you so much, Mr. Hannigan. Thank you for inviting me. You're a lively group. I love the interaction I'm hearing. In my other life, I am a writer. I like to write novels, and I like to write comedy. I used to write comedy. When I write novels, I make stuff up that isn't true. When I write comedy, I exaggerate things for effect. But tonight, I've done none of that. Everything I'm going to show you tonight is nonfiction, unfortunately, and it's not very funny. There is an activism going on in our schools. I'm from Arlington, but this is happening all over the place. It's happening in Fairfax, it's happening in California, it's happening in Colorado and Oregon, and it's now in my school district. I'd like to preface this by saying there is a difference between transgender people and transgender activists. No one is arguing that transgender children, people should not be supported and cared for. There is, however, an activist agenda that's being pushed into our schools, and it's important that we know about it. And I didn't find out about it until February, and I found about it by accident when a friend of mine was looking around the website, the Arlington School website, for something about summer school, and happened upon transgender policy. Can I have the next slide? I've been quoted as saying that our children are being experimented on, but that's not my quote. That came from David Aponte, who I don't believe he's any longer the chair of the GLSEN advocacy group here in Northern Virginia. GLSEN stands for the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network. He was quoted in the Washington Post last year, in June of 2018, saying that Northern Virginia and California have served as laboratories for policies regarding lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender issues. I never gave consent for my children to be experimented on. At the next slide. These are the things I want you to know about before I leave tonight. I want you to understand that the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network and the Human Rights Campaign Foundation have a war room approach to getting their ideas into your kids' heads. That things are happening in schools right now that would curl your hair if your hair isn't curly. And that H.R. 5, which has been dubbed the Equality Act, but I prefer to call the Inequality Act, I don't want to give it that weight of calling it the Equality Act, will close the nation's doors to religious freedom. There's no religious exemption, and what it does turns back women's rights, turns back girls' protections to pre-civil rights eras. And the next slide. One of the things that troubled me a lot when I started looking into what's going on in the public schools, I came across a website called genderspectrum.org. And Gender Spectrum provides a lot of things for schools. It provides some curriculum, it provides ideas, posters, things for schools to use. They have a concept called entry points. Entry points points are what thieves use to break into your house. They've got 4 entry points that they're very clear. This is how you get transgender ideology into the schools. Internal, interpersonal, instructional, and institutional. Now I want to walk through those 4 real quick. Can I have the next slide? Internal entry points have to do with how people think. They wanted to change the way people think about transgender people. If you notice in bold, they say right on their website, this entry point is crucial for the other approaches to be effectively implemented. We have to change the way people think about this. If you remember, for years we've been told, why are you getting involved with this? This doesn't concern you. If you're not transgender, let us live the way we want. And we said, oh, kind of makes sense. This doesn't bother my life. We'll just let it go. Changing the way people think. The next slide shows you the interpersonal entry points. That's how people communicate. Change the language, change the words. What are people saying? What are they allowed to say? What's acceptable? What's unacceptable? Changing language is really interesting because it used to be called transsexual. Now it's called transgender. All these new types of gender have been introduced. I counted 58 different pronouns that can be used for different sorts of genders. There's actually way more than that, and I'll show you here in a minute. But let's look at the next slide. Let's look at the instructional entry points. This is the 3rd entry point. So we've talked about internal, how people think, interpersonal, how they talk. Now it's instructional, what teachers are teaching. These approaches are the most direct way to impact students. I've heard a lot of people talking about opt-out versus opt-in. Well, this is all in the sex ed program or the family life education. It's not. It is in the air, it is in the food, it is in the water. I have a child in high school, a child in middle school, and a child in elementary school. They have all encountered transgender ideology in their classrooms. People have asked me, math, how can you put transgender ideology in math? By including in the textbook examples with people who are transgender. By including in history, people in history who may have been transgender, may not, may have. The goal is to get it into every part of the curriculum, and it's already there. It's already there. The next slide shows institutional entry points. This is where we are in Arlington right now. They're changing policies. They're changing staff training. All staff will be trained under this new policy that they're pushing through this year. All staff will receive transgender ideology training. I have some friends who've gone through it already. Substitute teachers are getting it. Staff leads. Every school will have a staff person who is the lead to make sure that these diversity issues and transgender issues are followed according to policy. To me, that sounds a lot like a compliance officer. Restrooms, literature in library and classrooms. My child's elementary principal said at a meeting, elementary principals are working hard to get transgender literature into libraries and classrooms. And it is there. Okay, can we see the next one? This quote came from also genderspectrum.org. They do a lot of trainings for people. And somebody who went through their training said, I was happy to see that the information that might seem controversial or surprising to us was taken at face value by the kids. Because that's what kids do. Kids listen to adults. A trusted adult has enormous power over what a child believes. Does anybody not believe me on that? Okay, great. They do. If you've raised kids, you know. They believe what you tell them. Again, I want to reiterate, nobody is saying transgender kids don't deserve to be cared for, supported, and loved. What I am taking issue with is some of these policies that are being slid into school to teach my kindergartner about transgender ideology, and to prevent me as a parent from being able to say, whoa, I want to teach my child about sexuality in my time and in my way. These are the things that are concerning me. Can we have the next slide? These are some things that you will see online in classrooms. This stuff circulates the web like crazy. Tumblr is a terrible place. Don't let your children go there. DeviantArt is another website. Any place kids are going and meeting up online, they'll see this stuff. They'll see this stuff in their classrooms. This is a genderbread person. Separates your sexuality and your body into many different pieces. I'm not sure if you can read on the right side. There's your gender identity. That's how you consider yourself on a spectrum from woman to man. Your gender expression, how you dress, how you do your hair, how you carry yourself. Biological sex, they have separated that from gender, which is the heart of the problem. Separating your biological sex, male and female, from your gender identity, which is considered how you feel inside, and putting all of this on a spectrum. So there are literally infinite numbers of ways that you can be. And then the fourth one is who you're attracted to. Be attracted to nobody, be attracted to other men, be attracted to women. Go ahead and flip to the next one. If you don't like the genderbread person, you can use the gender unicorn. Same idea, same information. Who do you think this is targeted for?
Kindergarten. Kids?
This is targeted for small kids. Yeah, this is targeted for small kids. Can we see the next one? Sorry, I'm speeding through quickly because I was told keep it moving, so I'm keeping it moving. Gender pronouns. Everyone wants to be called by their preferred pronoun. I'm seeing people put on their name tag, my name is Maria, my pronoun is she. Every time we get, you're laughing, but I've seen it in meetings. Every time we get together like this, we all need to know what each other's pronouns are. My pronoun is she, so you call me she, her, hers, herself. Lou's pronoun, Lou, are you he? You're good with that? I don't want to upset you.
Yeah.
Okay, Lou's he. He's he, him, his, or himself. Now, if you don't want to be a he or a she, you can be a them, they, them, theirs, themself. There's also Z. I think that's pronounced Z. Z, the objective is here, zir. The possessive is here, zirs. The reflexive is here, self, zir, self. As a former English teacher, this bothers me a lot. But the thing that really bothers me is what's in red up there. These are not the only pronouns. There are an infinite number of pronouns, and if I call you by the wrong pronoun, I am guilty of hate speech. So in a meeting like this, I need to query each one of you to find out if your pronoun is he, she, zir, ba, zoo, wolf, whatever you want it to be. And I need to call you by that. This is ridiculous, but this is what's being required. Can we see the next one? I wanted to put out for you next month in June. This is the book that the NEA, the National Educators Association, is recommending that all students should read. Julian is a Mermaid. It's about a little boy who feels like he's a little girl, and he's affirmed in that and told that he can be a mermaid. Go ahead and flip to the next. These are some books you'll find in classrooms right now. If you look at the Arlington County website for education and what books are on that reading list, you'll find some of these. My 8th grade daughter brought home Some Assembly Required, which is about Erin Andrews, a girl who decided to become a boy, and what that has been like. Go ahead and flip to the next one. February 28th, some of you may have heard about Ashland Elementary School in Arlington. This is a photo from Ashland. This was in the Washington Post. The NEA, National Educators Association, and the Human Rights Campaign Foundation, which is the policy and funding arm of the LGBTQ lobby, co-opted National Read a Book Day, came into Ashland and read the book I Am Jazz to 2 classes of kindergartners without parents' knowledge. They sent home a letter a few days before. It was a very long, disingenuous letter, celebratory, had the word transgender buried once in the middle. You know, Friday afternoon, you're not reading everything that came home in the packet. And this happened the next week. The letter did not go home in any language other than English, which is very unusual in Arlington. Everything goes home at least bilingual. I want to read a parent who sent us his story about his son. His son's in that picture. He said, my son was in the I Am Jazz book reading in February. He came home and asked his mom if the doctor could decide that he was a girl someday and that he'd be a girl from then on because the doctor said so. Because what they're saying in these readings is God made a mistake or the doctor made a mistake. The doctor who assigned your gender at birth made a mistake. My son was extremely uncomfortable, like he thought he was in trouble when we were just trying to find out what happened and what he understood about it. He could obviously tell something wasn't right and had no desire to talk about it. Call me crazy, but I don't think anything taught in public school should cause a rift between parents and their kids. APS, HRC, and everyone involved with this are deliberately using the natural trust young children have in adults, perverting it for their own ends, and using the classroom as a way around parental authority for subjects they know very well are controversial. Can you flip to the next slide? So this is a book about Jazz. Jazz was a little boy who became a little girl. What they don't tell you, what they don't tell our kids, are some of the truths that Jazz lives with. Jazz went on puberty blockers at 11. At 18, had a sex change operation, sex reassignment. It's now called gender affirmation surgery. Because of the puberty blockers, he did not have enough skin to create a simulated female sex organ. And so they had to do some things I'm not going to talk about to create enough skin there. After the surgery, the stitches did not hold. He actually split open, and there was a lot of pain. There was I don't want to talk about it any more than that. I'm referring to Jazz as a he, and I could get in a lot of trouble for that right now, because now Jazz is a she and must be referred to as such. Again, there are people who struggle with gender dysphoria. There are people who struggle with transgenderism. But presenting this kind of thing to kindergartners as a beautiful, fantastic, isn't this lovely, is unconscionable. Can you
Amen.
So I want to talk a little bit about the policy and where it's coming from. GLSEN has a policy handbook. This is the front of it. You flip to the next page. This is the table of contents. It's long, it is lengthy, it is weighty, it has a lot of stuff in it. This is what they want happening in schools. Bathrooms, dress code. I went to a concert, a middle school concert last week. Every kid in the band was wearing a bow tie, cummerbunded pants. Has to be gender neutral now. No more dresses for girls, apparently. One of the troubling things that was in a policy draft in Arlington has now been taken out, but it was just boilerplated from the GLSEN policy, was that if kids are going on a band trip or some kind of school trip, and a transgender child wants to room with the kids with whom he identifies. So say it's a boy who thinks he's a girl, wants to room with the girls. If the other girls are okay with that, then that happens. No parent has the right to object. That is no longer in our policy. We have fought very hard, and that is not in the policy, but that's what's wanted in this policy, that parents can't object. My son texted me last week, he's 15. He said, Mom, can I go to a play with some of the other kids tonight? I said, yeah, I think that'll work if you have time. He texted me 10 minutes later, he said, I don't really want to, but they were all standing right there, so I had to ask. So I said, so you need your mom to be the heavy? He goes, yeah. I said, yep, you can't go. That's what good parents do for their kids. I get to be the bad guy. This kind of policy takes that away. I don't get to protect my kid. I can't say, no, you're not going to share a bed with a member of the opposite biological sex. Go ahead and flip the page, please. This is in the GLSEN policy, and this is what's being funneled from the national GLSEN organization through local special interest groups. In Arlington, it's the Arlington Gender Identity Allies who are taking this GLSEN policy and funneling it into schools. School staff shall not disclose any information that may reveal a student's transgender status to others, including parents or guardians. This is one of the most troubling things to me. The school system is looking at parents like we are the bad guys. We can't be trusted to raise our children. They need to protect our children from us. The director of counseling at my school said in a meeting where I think she didn't expect anybody opposed to her to be listening, said parents who aren't supportive, who aren't there yet, need to be helped along. They need to be taught. They need to be brought along. How arrogant is that to tell me that I don't know what's best for my child?
Communism and Chinese communism. The state takes over your children. Excuse me.
I didn't say it, but thank you, sir.
Repeat, please.
The state trying to control people.
It's giving a lot of power to the state that doesn't belong with the state. Yes, I agree. That's the same thing, another part of the policy. It's critical that parent-guardian approval is never a prerequisite for respecting a student's gender identity. They want to make it so the school can know things about my kids that I don't get to know, and I'm not okay with that. My friend found out the daughter was using the boys' bathroom. My friend talked to the principal and said, I do not want my daughter using the boys' bathroom. What did the principal say? That's our policy. Anybody uses the bathroom that they feel most comfortable in. So, did you just say that your policy trumps parental authority? That's what I heard.
Yes.
Next slide, please. The GLSEN policy, and frankly, the bulk of these policies on transgender ideology are not supported in science. When you look at the research, much of it is coming from their own organizations. This is the GLSEN Model School District policy. They have 3 citations. 2 of them are surveys, mostly coming from social media surveys that they took. 1 is a collection of anecdotes. 2 of these originated with GLSEN. This is not research by any stretch of the imagination. This is what I see in much of the research that is touted. When you look at the populations, when you look at the methods, when you look at the numbers, what they are saying that these studies say is not what these studies are really saying. Go ahead and flip to the next one. I want to talk a little bit about HR 5, the Inequality Act. This is from the GLSEN Policy Handbook that we're just looking at. They mention, while Title IX does not specifically use the term transgender, no, it doesn't. Title IX is an act to protect girls. It keeps girls' sports being girls. The Department of Education rolled back a guidance document. Thank you, Department of Education. The Obama administration wrote out a Dear Colleague letter that took away biological sex from the understanding of what sex is and got the ball rolling on your gender identity is what decides who you are, not your biological sex. That has been rolled back. That Dear Colleague letter is gone. They're still citing it, even though it's not there anymore. Next slide, thank you. So the Equality Act, or HR 5, wants to abolish sex identity on the basis of your biology. It wants to put sex identity in terms of your gender, what you feel you are. That phrase in white, by striking sex and inserting sex, including sexual orientation and gender identity. That's in this bill over 30 times. It is eradicating biological categories of sex. It is eradicating women and men. Because any man can identify as a woman. Any woman can identify as a man just by saying that they are. Okay, next slide. This will mean you can have pregnant men. I don't know if you saw, there was an article, I don't remember where it was published. I can look that up for you if you want. A man went to the hospital and gave birth to a stillborn child because the hospital staff did not know this was a woman. He presented as a man, and they didn't have any idea that he was pregnant. And the hospital staff is being blamed for the child's death. Okay, next slide. This is what the Equality Act is creating, even though it hasn't been put into practice, even though it hasn't been passed yet. It passed the House, it's going to the Senate. We expect it to be killed in the Senate. However, we also expect activists to keep trying to funnel that in anywhere they can. Oh, are these hard to see? Are you familiar with Andrea Yearwood and Terry Miller? These are two transgender athletes in Connecticut who are running on a high school track team. They are boys who have decided that they are girls, and they are sweeping all of the track meets in the school in Connecticut. Okay, next slide. This is Mary Gregory. She swept all of the categories at a powerlifting, a women's powerlifting event. Now, the Powerlifting Association has since stripped her of her titles. But they are alone out there. When you see something like that where reason and sanity is prevailing, do everything you can to buck it up, to bolster it, because that's rare. She is fighting back. Go ahead and flip the next one. Okay. This is a transgender girl in back who is still wrestling on the girls' team, even though she's taking testosterone and is transitioning. Okay, next slide. I just want to show you, people are arguing that there's no difference between men's and women's physical capabilities. I know. This is 2019. How smart are we not? This is for the last 3 years, 2017 to 2019. Connecticut 55-meter dash top finishes in the state of Connecticut. This is where those two transgender athletes are competing. The blue, if you can see, hope you can see the colors. The blue curve is men, boys. The red, pink curve is girls, women. The red line is the average for girls. The blue line is the average for boys. Go ahead and show me the next one. Those two purple lines are Andrea Yearwood and Terry Miller. Those are the two transgender athletes who are competing in girls' sports. Next slide. Let's take the boys out. That is Andrea Yearwood and Terry Miller competing against girls. There are 2 girls in 3 years who could have beaten one of them. No girls could have beaten both of them. So don't tell me there are no biological differences between men and women. Okay, next slide. So just to recap, our public schools are being successfully targeted. Our kids are being targeted. Transgender ideology is being woven into every part of the school day. I know because I've seen it, because I've been there. If passed, the H.R. 5 Inequality Act will eradicate girls' sports, women's privacy, protections, parents' efforts to prevent school from implementing. It will all be taken away. We need to fight this act tooth and nail. Okay, next slide. I want to leave you with this. This is in the Huffington Post, 2015. The title of the article is "I come to indoctrinate your children into my LGBTQ agenda, and I'm not a bit sorry. I would be happy, delighted, overjoyed to cause children to disagree with their families on the subject of LGBTQ people." We are not arguing against transgender people's rights. We are arguing for our children's protections for parental rights and authority. Thank you. Lou tells me I have 3 minutes and 28, 27, 26 seconds. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering if parents within Arlington are doing anything about this. Are they trying to change what the school board can do, or?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that.
Repeat the question.
She wondered if parents in Arlington are doing anything to fight this. Yes, we are. Second bullet point there, it's a long, ugly website, but that's my organization, not mine personally. There's a team of us who are working. Arlington Parent Coalition. We are fighting back. We are fighting hard. We are getting ignored. Our superintendent, Patrick Murphy, is sending out form letters saying, leave a comment on the website to anybody who asks about this PIP. But yes, we are fighting back. And we've had a lot of great Fairfax parents come and help us. Yes, sir, in back.
What is the difference between H.R. 5 and the ERA?
H.R. 5
The Equality Act
and
the Equal Rights Amendment.
and the Equal Rights Amendment.
It seems to me they both go to the same place, and I wonder if you see that.
That is not a question I'm prepared to answer, but I'm going to research that so that next time I can answer that. I'm sorry I can't give you a good answer on that right now. Yes, sir.
And
this very room, the Fairfax County School Board voted almost unanimously, except for a couple of Republicans, that, what was there, one? Yeah. Okay. That the new family life curriculum that they're going to start, I don't know when it's going to happen, but that in there they say that gender is not identified until after birth, and that's what they're going to teach the kids.
Yeah, that is what they're teaching. They're calling it gender assigned at birth, as if your doctor just sort of randomly said, let's make this a boy, let's make this a girl. Yeah.
Until they have the actual operation, aren't they best referred to as cross-dressers?
The language does not support that anymore. But that's a question. That's something I want to know. When the school talks about transgender kids, what is the definition of that? Can a boy, the day before a school trip, say, hey, I think I'm a girl, because now I want to sleep in the girls' room with my girlfriend while we're on the trip? Because I was a kid once, and I know that kind of stuff would happen. Anything else? I've got 53 seconds left. Yes, sir.
Any idea how the International Olympic Committee is dealing with this problem?
I know that they are struggling with it. Caster Semenya is an athlete who has been competing as a woman, took a lot of prizes, and they found out on testing she has extremely high levels of testosterone. So they did a little more testing and found out that she has XY chromosomes. She has atypical genitalia. So she has always thought that she was a woman. That's a tough case. They don't have good decisions on that yet. She is not, I believe, being allowed to compete with women anymore, but that is an issue. I think I'm out of time. I need to say thank you so much for, I'll be around after and